So I'm going to be talking about, so my topic today is the Salem, Massachusetts trials. So this all happened in Salem, Massachusetts in the nice sunny era with all the winds and clims. The trial actually occurred from 1692 to 1693. So this would have Christians practicing witchcraft, which they are forbidden to do. So in order to practice witchcraft, a Christian, which is not me, would be someone else, they would have to sell their soul to the devil and sell anything. Their soul would involve anything but their name. Their soul to the devil, so then they can get revenge or empathy or just somehow hurt another or somehow just have strength in numbers, if that makes any sense. This involved men, women, children, but usually children and women were convicted of the crime. So this all started because these two girls were diagnosed with bewitchment. They were diagnosed by a doctor named Dr. Gills. This diagnosis was common back then, and they accused over 200 people of practicing witchcraft. So that's my little introduction. Now we're going to move on to Salem struggling. So how did the Salems struggle? So the Salems would be just the era in general and the place. In 1689, English rulers William and Mary started a war with France in the American colonies. It sent a bunch of refugees into this country, this little region called Essex, and this displaced people. The displaced people created a strand on Salem's resources. So this increased the competition between the families of the wealth and the families who are really well dependent on agriculture. So instead of paying their way, they would use the farm, which is a pretty sense of smart. In January of 1692, Reverend's daughter Elizabeth and his niece Abigail Williams started having many fits. They started screaming out of nowhere. They were violent. They would have coherence. They would summon things, or if someone said a prayer about Jesus and somehow his name is in it, they would stand up and say, "The devil is with me, the devil's with me," and both of them would do that simultaneously. So a local doctor blamed supernatural, which they would be diagnosed with bewitchment, technically. The women were asked who is at fault of this, and for the crime, they named these three women at first. They named Tibtuba. Tibtuba was the Paris Caribbean slave, and she was black at the time, so she had less power since of her skin color. And they named an accomplice. They named her two accomplices, Sarah Good and Sarah Osborne. Sarah Good was just a homeless beggar. She was harmless. And Sarah Osborne was the elderly improved woman. So now we're going to be talking about witch hunt. So witch hunt was about these three women accused. Witch hunt was how did they hunt down the witches? How did they do this? How did they do this? So witch hunt was basically hunting down all the people who were accused. And by listing, there were many, many, many accused. Some were accused at fault, but rarely at fault, because if they were accused of witchcraft, they would be very careful of how they commit. And most were innocent, but they were still accused. So the three women accused for interrogation was, of course, Tibtuba, Sarah Good, and Sarah Osborne. Both Sarah Good and Sarah Osborne, they aim their innocence because they have nothing left. So why do they have to go to jail? They don't need to go to jail. That's the point. But the one person who did confess, but to be fair, she did confess out of manipulation of the judge and out of manipulation of the crying girls in the courtroom. They brought the girls in the courtroom and they made everyone see that Tibtuba is the actual criminal, when in reality it's not. It's the girls who somehow messed with the magic because they have absorbed the aura. So Tibtuba confessed to the accusation, which was multiple accusations. She said, and quote, The devil came to me and bid to serve him. She said this about Reverend Paris, and she would say, like, oh, this person's is from, this person has something about the devil. The devil said something about this. The devil said something about this. She described images of black dogs. She described images of red cats and yellow birds. And a black man who wanted her to sign his book. So, the weird images she would see would be in her dreams, but also, like, just local day-to-day stuff. And everyone was confused when she would see abnormal things like black dogs. Well, black dogs could be normal. Red cats is a bit normal. It sounds like a Dr. Seuss book when they, like, rhyme stuff like this and this, this and this. But red cats are abnormal. Yellow birds would be normal. But putting that all together is kind of like a soliloquy, like a baby little soliloquy that's compared to King Lear. But in her little tiny soliloquy, it made sense to see how she's kind of feeling, how she's seeing these things, how it made it a little delusional. With her seeing these things, this is definitely a sign of witchcraft. Because any little baby sign of witchcraft that anyone can, like, put someone in. So let's say I blame Betty for witchcraft because she's gay. She likes the opposite gender. She's going to jail. That's it. They need no proof like they do in this era. In this era, they would want proof, they'd want explanation, they'd want the answer why. In this era, there's two eras. In our answer, they want who and why they did it, and, like, their motives, of course. In the other era, they would say who did it, how they did it, when they did it. Perfect. They go to jail. They're accounted for. They are accused. They shall be imprisoned. She admitted to signing the book, which also another sign of witchcraft. She's answering the signs in her brain. She's answering the calls. She did say that there were several other witches looking to destroy the Perthenans. So the Perthenans are Anne and her husband, which I forgot the name. But Anne has a particular story. So Anne had 8 children, but only one survived. Only Ruth Poothman survived. So the 7 children all died after birth or before birth. If they did after birth, it would be after a full day. And Anne has this theory, which also she was later accused, because all the wives are all accused, and I'm confused how. She was accused of practicing witchcraft because, or like an accomplice, because she always had these thoughts reoccurring in her brain saying, like, oh my god, my children, like, my child, she's dead. It's definitely a sign of witchcraft. Her blaming witchcraft is another sign, a symptom of her practicing witchcraft. It's to make her seem so innocent, so pure, if you get what I mean. They put the 3 women in jail, and the questioning got more serious, and beyond every month that followed, the more interrogation, the more people they'd add. So by April, May, and June, they had over 200 people accused. 200 innocent people. Could you imagine 200 innocent people going down for one crime because they cannot find, or they don't want to have the time to interrogate everyone individually? They would interrogate them once and throw them in jail if they show one symptom of witchcraft. In this era, they would interrogate them multiple times and come up with follow-ups and come up with lineups and have the people look at them and say, yes, this person, yes, this person. But as respects, it is a different era, and they deal with their crime differently. 19 were hung on this hill, and now they call it Gallows Hills, which is a really depressing thing. And one really, really sad thing that came to mind was a 71-year-old man was pressed to death with heavy stones. Imagine being, like, pushed to death, like squished. He was squished as if these were 2 walls and my head was the man. That is terrifying, and that is disgusting. And in the end, nearly 200 people are accused of the devil's magic. Now, this story, it's crazy. Whenever I bring it up to my friends now, they think, wow, that's really crazy that they believed in witchcraft because of something that happened to two girls. And the sad thing is that Tituba really, she confessed, and she was innocent, but also many believe that she is also practicing at the same time. Like, she was putting an act. Well, there you have it, folks. That is the Salem witchcraft. The Salem, Massachusetts trials that took place from 1692 to 1693. Now, that was about 1 year of putting 200 people in jail, and each month having it more severe and severe. That's really crazy. But I hope you enjoyed this, and some little, like, following questionnaires, or, like, following me on how could I explain this? How I discovered these things. So I would typically just Google stuff. I would write them down in my notebook that I have right here, and I would jot down some notes, jot down my own ideas, and if I had an idea, like sometimes like the Ann Puthman, that was actually from the book. So I would integrate that into there, and if I had quotes, I would cite the quotes, and I think I watched a few videos, and I watched a few plays of the Crucibles to get a better understanding. Anyways, thank you for watching, and I hope you have an amazing day.